Doctor saves stray puppy. Boss fires her, then something amazing happens 30 minutes later. Dr. Emily Carter had always been a compassionate soul. As an emergency room physician, she had spent years saving lives, but her love for helping extended beyond just human patients. She had a soft spot for animals, especially strays who had no one to care for them. One rainy afternoon, as she was finishing her shift at Westwood General Hospital, she noticed a small, shivering puppy curled up near the emergency entrance. It was soaked to the bone, whimpering in pain, and barely moving. Emily's heart clenched. She bent down, carefully scooping the frail creature into her arms. A quick assessment told her the pup had an injured leg and was suffering from dehydration. Without a second thought, she wrapped it in her lab coat and rushed back inside. The hospital didn't allow animals, but she couldn't leave it to suffer. In an empty examination room, she cleaned the wound, applied a makeshift splint, and gave it a small amount of 4 fluids to stabilize it. Unfortunately, just as she was finishing up, Dr. Lawson, the hospital's chief administrator, walked in. His face turned red with anger. "What is the meaning of this, Dr. Carter?" he demanded, his sharp eyes darting between Emily and the trembling puppy. "It was injured and needed help," Emily explained, keeping her voice steady. "This is a hospital for people, not stray animals. You know the policy," he barked. "You've crossed the line." Emily expected a reprimand, maybe a warning. But what came next shocked her. "You're fired," he said coldly. "Effective immediately. Clear out your locker." Her breath caught in her throat. "Fired? Over saving a puppy? I won't argue. Leave before I call security," he said, turning on his heel and marching out. Stunned and heartbroken, Emily gathered her things. She cradled the puppy, now wrapped in a warm towel, and stepped outside into the cold air. Her mind raced. She had given everything to this hospital, to her patients, and now she was jobless over an act of kindness. She sat on a bench near the hospital entrance, stroking the puppy's soft fur, wondering what to do next. Just as she was about to call a friend for a ride, her phone buzzed. It was a number she didn't recognize. She hesitated but answered. "Dr. Carter," a warm, confident voice asked. "Yes," she said cautiously. "My name is Jonathan Reed. I run one of the top private medical clinics in the city, and I just heard what happened. Is it true that you lost your job for saving an injured puppy?" Emily blinked in surprise. "How did you hear about that?" "There was a witness, a patient in the ER who saw everything. They posted about it online. People are outraged. Your story is spreading like wildfire," Jonathan explained. Emily glanced at her phone and saw dozens of notifications. Social media was ablaze with support. "I need doctors with your kind of compassion," Jonathan continued. "I'd like to offer you a position at my clinic. Better pay, better hours, and a team that actually values kindness." Emily's heart pounded. 30 minutes ago, she had lost her job. Now, she was being offered something even better. Tears welled in her eyes, not from sadness, but from sheer gratitude. "I'd love that," she said, her voice shaking with emotion. As she held the now sleeping puppy close to her chest, she realized something profound. Sometimes, the worst moments in life are just stepping stones to something greater. And all it took was an act of kindness to change everything. Dr. Emily Carter hurried through the hospital's back entrance, her shift finally over after a grueling 16 hours in the emergency room. Rain drizzled lightly, the streets shimmering under the dim glow of the streetlights. As she pulled her coat tighter around her, a faint whimper caught her attention. She turned toward the sound and spotted a small bundle of fur curled up near the hospital's loading dock. A stray puppy, drenched and shivering, its tiny body barely rising with each breath. Emily's heart clenched. She knelt beside it, carefully placing a hand on its side. The poor thing was burning with fever, and one of its legs looked swollen, probably broken. She hesitated. The hospital had strict policies against bringing in animals, but there was no way she could leave the pup in this state. With gentle hands, she scooped it up, cradling it against her chest. Inside, she moved quickly, slipping into an empty examination room. She laid the puppy on a clean towel and checked its leg. A fracture, but not too severe. It needed fluids, warmth, and proper medical attention, things she could at least provide for now. She worked efficiently, cleaning a small wound near its paw, applying a makeshift splint, and warming it with heated blankets. As she finished adjusting the 4-drip, the door swung open. Dr. Lawson, the hospital's chief administrator, stood in the doorway, his face a mask of cold disapproval. "What do you think you're doing?" His voice was sharp, cutting through the quiet room. Emily straightened, keeping her expression calm. "This puppy was injured and would have died if I left it outside. You know the rules, Dr. Carter," he said, stepping forward. "This is a hospital, not a vet clinic. You've just violated multiple protocols." She opened her mouth to argue, but he held up a hand. "Enough. I've had enough of your impulsive behavior. You're fired." The words hit her like a slap. Fired? Over saving a life? She stared at him, her pulse thudding in her ears. "You can't be serious." "I am. Clean out your locker and leave immediately." He turned on his heel and strode out, leaving the room thick with silence. Emily exhaled shakily, looking down at the tiny creature she had just saved. A part of her wanted to break down, but another part, stronger, steadier, refused to regret what she had done. She gathered her belongings, tucking the now sleeping puppy into her coat. As she stepped out into the night, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Hello? Dr. Carter?" A deep, confident voice spoke on the other end. "My name is Jonathan Reed. I own a private medical clinic in the city. I just heard about what happened." Emily frowned. "How did you?" "Your story is all over social media. A patient saw what happened and posted about it. People are furious that you were fired for helping an animal." Emily glanced at her phone screen. Notifications were pouring in. "I value doctors who show compassion," Jonathan continued. "I'd like to offer you a job. Better hours, better pay, and a team that actually cares about kindness." Her breath caught. Just minutes ago, she had been jobless and heartbroken. Now, she was being handed an opportunity far better than she could have imagined. Tears welled in her eyes, but she smiled. "I'd love that." As she held the sleeping puppy close, she realized that sometimes, life had a way of turning even the darkest moments into something extraordinary. The next morning, Emily woke up to the soft warmth of the little puppy curled against her chest. The events of the previous night still felt surreal, fired from her job, but then offered an even better opportunity within minutes. She gently stroked the puppy's fur, feeling a newfound sense of purpose. Her phone buzzed again. Another wave of notifications. She unlocked it, and her eyes widened. The story had gone viral. News outlets were picking it up. Then, a name stood out among the messages. Dr. Jonathan Reed. She quickly opened it. "Emily, I'd love to meet you in person today if you're available. I believe you'd be a perfect fit at our clinic. Let me know a time that works for you." Excitement flickered in her chest, but so did nervousness. Could she really trust this? Was it too good to be true? She took a deep breath and typed back. "Thank you, Dr. Reed. I'd love to meet. How about noon?" His reply was almost instant. "Perfect. See you then." Thousands of strangers had flooded the hospital's page with outrage, demanding justice for her. Messages of support filled her inbox, some from fellow doctors, others from complete strangers. Emily set her phone down and turned her attention to the puppy. It stretched its tiny legs and yawned, its soft brown eyes looking up at her. She smiled. "Looks like we're both getting a fresh start, little one." By noon, she stood outside a sleek, modern glass building with the words Reed Medical and Wellness Center displayed proudly above the entrance. Taking a deep breath, she stepped inside. A friendly receptionist greeted her. "Dr. Carter? Dr. Reed is expecting you. Right this way." Emily followed her through a bright, open hallway until they reached a large office. Inside, a tall man with salt and pepper hair and sharp blue eyes stood up from behind his desk. He smiled warmly. "Dr. Carter," he said, extending a hand. "It's an honor to meet you." She shook it, feeling a firm, confident grip. "Thank you for this opportunity," she said sincerely. Jonathan gestured for her to sit. I won't waste your time. We need doctors like you, ones who care, who put compassion first. That's the kind of medical practice I run. Emily's heart raced. This was exactly what she had always wanted. Before I say yes, she said, choosing her words carefully, I have to ask, why me? Why take a risk hiring someone who just got fired? Jonathan leaned forward, his expression serious. Because I know a good doctor when I see one. The world needs more people like you, Emily. And frankly, Westwood General just made a mistake that I'm happy to benefit from. Emily felt a swell of confidence. For the first time in years, she felt seen not just as a doctor, but as a person who truly cared. A slow smile spread across her lips. All right, Dr. Reed. Let's do this. Jonathan nodded. Welcome to the team. As she walked out of the office, a lightness filled her chest. She had lost her old job, but gained something much greater, a place where she belonged. And as for the little puppy waiting for her at home, she had already decided on a name. Hope. Because that's exactly what this new chapter in her life felt like. That evening, Emily returned home, her mind still reeling from the whirlwind of events. She placed Hope on a soft blanket near the couch, watching as the little puppy stretched out with a contented sigh. It was hard to believe that just yesterday, both of them had been in such a desperate situation. As she sat down, her phone buzzed again. Another message, from an unknown number. Dr. Carter, this is Rachel Morgan, a journalist from Channel 7 News. Your story has gained national attention, and we'd love to feature you for an exclusive interview. Would you be open to sharing your experience? Emily's breath caught. National attention? She hadn't even processed the fact that her story was still spreading like wildfire. She opened her social media feed, and her heart pounded. The post about her firing now had over 1 million shares. Hundreds of doctors, nurses, and animal lovers had chimed in, condemning Westwood General for their decision. Some had even started a petition calling for the hospital to reinstate her. Others were sharing their own stories of compassion in medicine and how hospitals often failed to value it. Then, something even more surprising caught her eye. Westwood General had released a statement. She clicked on it, her pulse quickening. We recognize the public concern surrounding Dr. Emily Carter's termination. While our hospital policies prohibit the treatment of non-human patients, we acknowledge that her actions came from a place of compassion. We deeply regret any distress caused and are reviewing our policies. Dr. Carter is welcome to return to Westwood General if she so chooses. Emily stared at the screen. An apology? A job offer? A part of her felt vindicated, her actions hadn't gone unnoticed. The outpouring of support had forced the hospital to reconsider. But the other part of her knew the truth, she didn't need to go back. She had already found something better. Her phone buzzed again, this time, from Dr. Reed. I saw the hospital's statement. I have no doubt they'll try to lure you back. But I hope you know your worth, Emily. The choice is yours, but if you're looking for a place where compassion is celebrated, not punished, our doors are always open. Emily smiled. She already knew her answer. She glanced at Hope, who blinked up at her with sleepy eyes. She reached down, scratching the puppy's tiny ears. No going back, she murmured. Hope let out a tiny, approving yip. Emily chuckled, then opened her phone and typed a response to the journalist. I'd love to share my story. Let's show the world why kindness should never be a reason to be punished. As she hit send, she felt it deep in her bones, this was only the beginning. The next morning, Emily woke up to the soft nudging of Hope's tiny nose against her cheek. The little puppy had grown more energetic overnight, now able to wobble around on its injured leg without whimpering. Emily smiled, stretching as the morning sun streamed through her window. Today was going to be a big day. Not only was she starting her new job at Reed Medical and Wellness Center, but she also had an interview lined up with Channel 7 News. As she sipped her coffee, her phone buzzed with another unexpected message, this time from Dr. Lawson. Emily, let's talk. The board wants to make things right. Call me. She stared at the message, feeling a strange mix of emotions. A week ago, she would have done anything to avoid losing her job at Westwood General. But now, she wasn't sure she even cared. She set her phone down without responding and got ready for the day. At noon, she arrived at the news studio, where she was greeted by Rachel Morgan, the journalist who had reached out. Rachel was all smiles as she shook Emily's hand. "Dr. Carter, you have no idea how much your story has resonated with people. The internet has dubbed you the compassionate doctor." Emily chuckled. "I was just doing what felt right. And that's exactly why people are rallying behind you," Rachel said. "Let's get started." The interview was intense but uplifting. Rachel asked about Emily's firing, her decision to help Hope, and whether she would return to Westwood General now that they had offered her job back. Emily thought for a moment before answering. "I won't lie, losing my job was painful. But it also showed me something important. I don't want to work in a place that sees kindness as a weakness. I want to work somewhere that celebrates it. So no, I won't be going back." The interview ended with a wave of support from viewers, flooding the station's social media with praise for Emily, but just when she thought the day couldn't get any crazier, her phone buzzed again, this time, a call from an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Hello." A deep, authoritative voice responded. "Dr. Carter, this is Daniel Hawthorne. I've been following your story. Would you be open to discussing an initiative that could change the way hospitals handle cases like yours?" Emily's heart pounded. An initiative? Changing hospital policies nationwide? Hope let out a tiny bark, almost as if she could sense the magnitude of the moment. Emily took a deep breath and smiled. "I'm listening." Emily sat up straighter, her pulse quickening as she listened to Daniel Hawthorne's voice on the other end of the line. "We want to create new ethical guidelines that encourage medical professionals to act with compassion, not just for humans, but for any life in need," he explained. "Hospitals shouldn't punish doctors for doing the right thing. We believe you could be the face of this movement." Emily felt a lump in her throat. She had always wanted to make a difference, but she had never imagined it would happen like this. "I don't even know what to say," she admitted, glancing at Hope, who had curled up on her lap. Hawthorne chuckled. "Say yes. You've already inspired millions, Dr. Carter. Let's turn that inspiration into action." A slow smile spread across Emily's face. "All right. I'm in." Over the next few months, her life transformed in ways she never expected. She thrived at Reed Medical and Wellness Center, working alongside a team that valued both skill and heart. Her story continued to spread, sparking conversations about the importance of empathy in healthcare. Hospitals across the country began re-evaluating their policies, and under Hawthorne's leadership, the Compassion in Medicine initiative was launched, a movement that protected doctors who went above and beyond, even in unconventional ways. As for Westwood General, public pressure forced them to make sweeping changes. They officially rescinded their harsh policies and implemented new training focused on ethical decision-making. Dr. Lawson resigned soon after, replaced by a director who believed in balancing rules with humanity. One evening, Emily sat on her porch, watching the sunset as Hope, now fully healed, chased a butterfly across the yard. Her phone buzzed. A message from Jonathan Reed. "Just saw the latest headlines. You really did it, Emily. You changed the system." She smiled, typing back. "We changed it. Thank you for believing in me." Setting her phone aside, she leaned back, exhaling deeply. Losing her job had once felt like the worst thing that had ever happened to her. But now, she understood. It had been the beginning of something far greater. Sometimes, life closed one door so that a better one could open. And for Emily Carter, that open door had led to a future brighter than she had ever imagined. Months passed, and Emily's world had completely transformed. What once felt like the worst moment of her career had become the catalyst for something extraordinary. The Compassion in Medicine initiative gained traction, forcing hospitals nationwide to reconsider their policies. Her face appeared on magazine covers, and she was invited to speak at medical conferences, advocating for a future where kindness and medicine were not at odds but inseparable. But the most surprising moment came one evening when she received an email from an unknown sender. The subject line read, "Thank you for saving me." Curious, she clicked it open. "Dr. Carter, you don't know me, but I was in the ER that night. I was sitting in the waiting room, feeling hopeless about my own condition, doubting if doctors even cared about people like me anymore. Then I saw you, ignoring the rules, risking your job to save a tiny, helpless life. And in that moment, I knew, there are still good doctors in the world. You restored my faith. You saved more than just that puppy, you saved me. Thank you. Emily stared at the screen, tears welling in her eyes. She had fought so hard for systemic change, but in the end, the true victory wasn't about policies or headlines, it was about one life touched at a time. A soft bark brought her back to the moment. Hope, now strong and full of energy, wagged her tail excitedly at her feet. Emily scooped her up, pressing a kiss to the pup's forehead. Guess we were meant to change lives together, she whispered. At that moment, her phone buzzed with a new message. Dr. Reed, big news. Check the hospital board's announcement. Emily quickly pulled up the link and gasped. Westwood General announces major policy overhaul. Dr. Carter was right. The article detailed how her story had forced an internal investigation, leading to the resignation of Dr. Lawson and a complete rewrite of hospital ethics guidelines. Emily laughed, shaking her head in disbelief. It was poetic, the same hospital that had fired her was now changing because of her. She stepped onto her porch, breathing in the crisp evening air. The sky stretched endlessly above her, a reminder that life had no limits when you followed your heart. Hope barked again, and Emily grinned. She had no idea what the future held, but she knew one thing for certain, she was just getting started. The end, or maybe, the beginning. The end.